Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. So this channel, Everyday Data Science, is all about trying to learn the different concepts in data science by practicing a lot of questions. In this video, I'm going to solve this question on DataLemur regarding repeated payments using PostgreSQL and try to walk you through how we can develop solutions to such problems. The difficulty level of this question is hard and this question has been asked in Stripe interviews. Okay, let's jump right in. The question reads, sometimes payment transactions are repeated by accident. It could be due to a user error, API failure, or a retry error that causes a credit card to be charged twice, right? Using the transactions table, identify any payments made at the same merchant with the same credit card for the same amount within 10 minutes of each other. Count such repeated payments. The assumption of this question is the first transaction of such payment should not be counted as a repeated payment. This means if there are two transactions performed by a merchant with the same credit card for the same amount within the 10 minutes, there will be only one repeated payment. So basically like the first transaction, and within 10 minutes, if for the same credit card with the same merchant and same amount, there is another transaction. So obviously there are in total how many transactions? Two transactions, right? So the repeated payment is the second one, right? If let's say within 10 minutes there are three transactions, so how many repeated payments are there? Two, right? So first one is not to be counted. So basically we have a table called transaction with 5 different columns: transaction ID, merchant ID, credit card ID, amount, and transaction timestamp, which is a date time. And here is an example, right? So if you look at it, right? So same merchant, same credit card, and same amount within 10 minutes. So if we look at it, right? So merchant ID 101, right? Same merch. So you have same merchant ID, same credit card, and same amount, right? However, if you look at it, so 12 o'clock, 12:08, and 12:28. So obviously these two are within 10 minutes, but these two are not within 10 minutes, right? So how many repeated payments? One up till now. And if we look for merchant ID 102, right? So same merchant ID, same credit card, and the amount should also be same. But here for these merchant ID 102 and credit card ID 2, the amount is different, right? So the only repeated payment is this one, right? The second one, because first one should not be counted as a repeated payment according to the question. So that is what we have in the output. So how many repeated payments? One, right? So basically to do this, what we need to do is for each of these transactions, we should find out the timestamp or the previous transaction as well, right? So for example, for this, like there is nothing before this, right? So here it should be null. Then for this transaction, right, on 25th of September 2022 at 12:08, what is the time of the previous transaction? So we can find out the previous transactions when your merchant ID, your credit card ID, and the amount is same, right? So you can find that, and then make sure that whether the difference between these two are same or within 10 minutes or not. If it is within 10 minutes, then obviously it is a repeated payment and you count it, right? So what I'm saying is, from this table called transactions, right, let's keep all the 5 columns and then make a new column which has basically the timestamp of the previous transaction. So how to do that? You can use the lag window function, right? So we can write lag, and you need to calculate the transaction timestamp. So transaction timestamp, right? And by default it will take the previous row, right? Here if you write comma 1, it is previous one row, previous second row, third row, fourth row, right? So by default we need only the previous timestamp, right? So the previous transaction time. So lag transaction timestamp, and since this is a window function, we need to write over clause. And then what we need to do is for same merchant ID, credit card ID, and amount, right? So what we do, we can write partition by merchant ID, then credit card ID and amount, and order by the transaction. So order by transaction timestamp, right, in ascending order, because all the ascending order. So within the 10 minutes thing, like if you need to get the transaction time, right? So that is why we are ordering by transaction timestamp in ascending order, right? And let's alias this as previous transaction, right? So previous transaction time, right? Okay, let me go ahead and run this. Let's see what we are having. So here we have, okay, so for this, obviously there is nothing before this, right? Secondly, for this one, we partition by merchant ID, credit card ID, and amount, right? So these two are same. So it will find, okay, previous transaction this, and again for this one, the previous transaction time is this one, right? So you have this. For 10115, right? So you have a different time, right? Way after 10 minutes. So you have these. Now here, if you see, this is changing. So same merchant ID, but credit card ID is changing, right? So this is going to be included in a second partition, right? Because we are partitioning by 3 different columns. So merchant ID, credit card ID, and amount, when they are same, so that is going to be one partition, and there we are calculating the lag, so the previous transaction time, right? So now once we have this, then what we can do is we can save this entire thing in a common table expression. So what I'm doing is with CTE as, and then this entire thing goes into parentheses, and then from this common table expression we should only keep those rows where and now what we need to do is we need to calculate the difference between transaction timestamp and the previous transaction time, right? So if you keep only those rows where difference between transaction timestamp and previous transaction time is less than or equal to 10 minutes, then you are then when you count the total number of transaction ID, they are going to be basically the number of repeated payments, right? So where, and then this is a timestamp, this is a timestamp, right? So we need to make sure that where, and now you need to, so basically what we need to do is we need to calculate the difference in this in seconds and then divide by 60, so you get the difference in minutes. So how to do that? We need to use the extract function. So extract, and then so there are different methods, so like minutes, hour, etc., right? So epoch is a method which basically calculates the difference in seconds in intervals, right? So we need to write extract epoch from, and then since we calculated the previous transaction time, right? So obviously this transaction timestamp is always going to be greater than previous transaction time, right? So we do epoch from transaction timestamp minus previous transaction time, right? Previous transaction time, and this is going to give you the total number of seconds, right? Total number of seconds, you need to divide it by 60, so you get the total number of minutes, and it should be less than or equal to 10, right? So you are only keeping those rows. So obviously this row is going to be kept, this is not going to be kept, this is not going to be kept, right? All these are not going to be kept, etc. So once you have these kind of rows, then what we need to do is you simply need to count the transaction ID. So we can write, okay, return count of transaction ID and alias this as payment count, as payment count. Okay, so I think this looks good. Let me go ahead and run this. Let's see what we are getting. So payment count, so there are 4 repeated payment counts, right? Let me go ahead and submit it to see if it passes all the test cases. So this is accepted, and this is how to do it. Again, not a very difficult question. All we had to do was, firstly we found out that, okay, for each merchant ID, credit card ID, and amount, when they are same, what is the previous transaction time, because that is how, we are defining a repeated payment, that, payments made at the same merchant with the same credit card for the same amount, right? And then once we had those previous transaction times, then what we did was, from that common table expression, we extracted the total number of seconds between those previous transaction time and the transaction time, right? And then divided by 60 to get that in minutes, and then you make sure that we are only keeping those rows where those transaction time is within or less than or equal to 10 minutes, and then we counted the number of different transaction IDs, and those are transaction IDs basically represent the repeated payments. So yeah, this is how we do it. Let me know if there is a better way or more efficient way you can think of to solve this question. Let the solution be in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next video.